Hello and welcome to another edition of Grasschat's Actual Grass Chat. I am Russ, your host once again, and this is actually our 10th one of these we've done, which I'm very pleased to have the ability to say. So we're going to go with our 10th guest on this little series, and I'm very pleased to welcome along somebody who's definitely emerging as a leading force now in the various classes that this young lady races in. And we're going to find out a little bit more about herself and her autograss life. I would like to say a warm welcome, Abi Shields. Hello, welcome. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Are you?
Yes, we're very good. We're very good. Obviously, we're living in a difficult world. How are you coping at the moment? You're getting through each day?
Yeah, just keeping myself busy, just trying to focus on getting back out there racing. I think initially I was maybe a little bit glad of a break, maybe do what normal people do, and now I'm sat here wondering, what do normal people do? You know, there ain't much to do. I mean, granted, we are in lockdown, but even prior to that, I thought, you know, I just want to get back out there now. I'm itching to get back in the seat.
Yeah. So, are you able to currently still work and do things at the moment? What are you actually up to in your daily
on and
basis?
off work at the moment. Some days furloughed, some days I'm in, so it's not too bad. I guess on the days that I aren't in, just keep myself busy. There's plenty of jobs to do around the house and whatnot. So yeah, FaceTime my mum quite a bit.
Have you been able to get any work done on the cars for whenever we can go racing again, or have they been tucked away?
Unfortunately not, obviously, due to lockdown and me moving to Lincoln. I moved literally 3 days before the first lockdown, so I haven't really been back home much to see the cars or my family. So at the moment I am just leaving it to Dad and letting him do what he can at the weekend. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll be like everybody to get back out there and see the cars again. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And to get back in them. We're actually going to talk a little bit about your family, because I didn't know this, but before we get more onto yourself, we're going to just talk about your dad, because like most of us in autograss, we all got born at these ages. We all got born into the sport and brought up from a young age. But originally, your dad actually was more of a favourite of two wheels. And he was pretty handy on the motorbikes, actually competing in probably the most dangerous bike race in the world, the Isle of Man TT. And he was actually pretty good at it, finishing in the top 10 once. Has your dad ever shared any memories, any info? Have you seen any pictures, videos of him back in action when he was on the bikes?
Yeah, I've seen some pictures. Unfortunately, video-wise, I guess there just wasn't the technology like there is nowadays. You know, everyone's got a phone, everyone can record within a matter of seconds. Obviously, that wasn't around back then. So footage is very, very minimal. But I have seen pictures, news articles and whatnot with him being at the TT. So no, I am proud of him, definitely, for what he's achieved. Yeah.
Have you ever had a keenness for bikes, or are you more four wheels?
I am definitely four wheels. I would love to be able to ride a bike, considering that Dad used to compete in the TT and has grown up with bikes. I am very surprised in myself that I haven't ever got on a bike and learned to ride, but maybe one day, yeah.
Yeah. I honestly can't say I'm a bike fan. I don't like falling over. That's the bit that puts me off. But no, it was definitely a surprise piece of information to find that out. And I'm sure if anybody did find any footage of your dad in action back in the late 80s, 1989, he finished 10th. So yeah, it must be a proud achievement to reflect back on for him. But moving on to autograss, that happened at around the same time. And your mum and dad was actually introduced to autograss by a much missed character from the sport, and that is the late Stu Nichols. But your mum and dad was introduced to it in 1989, and they started at the basic end of it. Let's be fair. They started in a class 1. Again, has anything been spoken to you about how their time getting into the sport and their early days? Have you seen anything back from that either, or is that now just a distant memory all around?
I've seen pictures. I do know that their first meeting, they did actually join White Rose.
Okay.
Just for their Boxing Day meeting. I think they literally joined for the day. And yes, the first meeting was Boxing Day. all I do know is that it wasn't long before panel damage was a thing for my dad, and he was fed up with it. And I don't think, you know, going from a motorbike to a class one gave him the same adrenaline rush. So I know it wasn't going to, you know, for him it wasn't going to be long before the Mini was packed away and something quicker had to come.
Yeah, yeah. I always say, like, if you can get and at least have a go in a faster class just to feel what it's like. Nothing against those who do race, obviously the slower classes. I mean, myself included. Now we race in class 1, class 2, but yeah, I can certainly see when he's living on the edge at the TT and then going into a different discipline. The eagerness to go faster was definitely there, which is why they would soon move into class 8. The class 1 was only kept for a little while, but they soon ended up being in class 8 and going on a few years now. Very tragically, obviously, the very man who introduced your mum and dad to the sport of autographs sadly passed away. But on his very first memorial meeting at Yorkshire Dales, your dad ended up winning the Class 8 final, I think it was, and the Champion of Champions. So his name was the very first one to go on the Stu Nichols Memorial Trophy. That must have been quite an emotional time for him. Obviously, you was quite young then when that happened, that event. But has your dad ever reflected back on that? I'm sure he's still got the trophies from there, because it must have been a special event for him.
Yeah, obviously Stu did introduce him to the sport, and my dad doesn't really get emotional about much. And yeah. I know for him that he definitely set out, I think, that weekend to do well. Obviously, you know, to win was the ultimate goal, but I think for him it did mean a lot, and especially, you know, in Nick's memory, the fact that he brought him into the sport, and maybe we should just say thank you for what he'd done, you know, because obviously, like I say, he was fond of Nick, so yeah, it must have meant a lot to him.
Yeah, no, that's good. But we move on to yourself. Growing up, you actually, I don't know what you was like as a child at a race meeting, but apparently you was actually wanting what most girls wanted at a young age. They wanted a pony. But it seems like you wasn't allowed one of them, and it had to be horsepower rather than pony power. And later on, you would get to obviously to the age where you could get behind the wheel and have a go. You wasn't forced to have a go at it, was you? Or did you suddenly decide that you actually, no, I'm going to have a go at autographs. I go with my mum and dad every weekend. I suppose it's my time to have a go. Was you pushed into it, encouraged, or did you decide on your own initiative?
I think more encouraged than pushed into. My dad always went with the theory, if a horse or a pony breaks its leg, that's it. You knock a wheel off the car, you can put it straight back on and you can be out there. And that was the one thing that my dad just kept saying to me, is like, if anything happens to that pony, that's it, it's gone. And are you really going to go look after it on a weekend while me and your mum are at racing? So, you know, obviously the fact that they were in the sport and whatnot was probably the biggest factor to it all. But no, more persuaded into it. I actually got my junior special when I was 11. So I'd had like a year or so to get used to it and the way it worked before I ended up even seeing the track. So yeah, definitely more persuaded into it. But definitely a decision I don't look back on and ever regret.
Well, of course, otherwise we wouldn't be here now, would we, talking about it? But do you remember learning to drive at that young age? What did you think when you actually sat in the car and it moved for the first time? Obviously, as an 11-year-old girl who, in fairness, not many girls do get into the sport at a young age. It is more populated by the boys. But yeah, what did you think when you actually got in the car and it actually moved for the first time? Was you scared of it or excited?
It was a lot of bunny hopping. I can tell you that, trying to get used to the clutch control compared to when I learned to drive initially in my mum's car. So no, there was a lot of bunny hopping. The wheelie bin unfortunately took the brunt of most of my driving around the garden. Yes, my mum did have to place an order for a new wheelie bin because it did see the front wheels a few times, trying to get the power of myself to like turn the car. But no, initially I suppose at 11 it is a bit of a shock to the system that you've got this, at the time, how high powered car underneath you. But no, you soon get used to it and, you know, learn clutch control and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. So initially quite intimidating in the car, but then yeah, once you get
Yeah.
used to it, it's all right. But then obviously it's okay practicing on your own, but you then end up getting onto a racetrack and you're with other people. That's a different thing. But as I did mention, obviously being a girl coming into the sport, where the junior class, it is heavily populated by the boys. Probably when you go to a race meeting, if there's 20 juniors there, at least 16 of them are boys, and you might have 3 or 4 girls among it. So did you feel intimidated by going against the boys, or is it the fact that you couldn't tell who was who in the car effectively? It didn't matter and it was just somebody else to be on the track with. Was you comfortable in that scenario at first?
I was, to be honest. It never really fazed me. I think when I first started, I remember there was 1 or 2 girls that I used to like just follow around the track. Well, I say follow, attempt to follow around the track more than anything. But no, obviously, as I progressed, it definitely was a drive. The fact that there was only a couple of females, it did definitely make me a lot more determined as a driver to go out there and try and show them the way around.
Yeah, well, no, that's good. That's good. Obviously, at that age, people progress at different levels. So some are naturally able to just go for it straight away. They get that confidence from somewhere. I don't know, because I never had it. I was one of those where I was slow and steady at times. But unfortunately, that was the same for yourself, which you did tell me. But you actually had, I believe, the very first junior special, which was built by Jeff Beresford from his organisation. You had the first one. And as we said, you did take it cautiously at first, getting used to the car, the surroundings, other people. But yeah, you were determined to improve, and eventually you would start to improve, and you would start getting to the front. Did you eventually get surprised when you suddenly went from maybe being at the back to actually racing with them at the front, or was it just real excited to actually be racing and trying to get your first race win?
Yeah, obviously at first I was a bit like, when I got to the front, I was like, oh my word, now what do I do? I've never been in that position before, so I think sometimes I'd maybe let someone pass just to show me the way around, but no, it was an exciting time, and I had grown confidence in the car. Obviously we did some improvements over the winter and whatnot, but I think with the fact that the car had improved its potential, I think the fact my confidence in the car had grown as well. So yeah, it was exciting time to get back up there and actually mingle against the best people that were out there at the time.
Yeah, because obviously everybody aims to try and do well. You can only enjoy it so much, and then you do want to start winning races. And it was around 2013 when you started to get better with the car. The car was getting better at the same time. Do you remember getting your first race win or first top 3, first trophy? Do you remember any of that? It might be a tricky one to say. I can't remember when I got mine, but yeah, I mean, what did you feel like when you actually finally got those sort of results and they were happening every weekend? I'm guessing confidence was growing.
Yeah, of course. There's one race in particular that always sticks in my mind. It was me and Jason Alderson actually. We and him used to battle, all the time in juniors, and we'd always be at the front. And to be honest, I put it down to him that I had a lot more confidence at the time, because we was clean, close racing, and he'd always try and spur me on. And no, it was good. I can't remember exactly when I had my first win, but I know actually it was in my second season, so before the improvements to the car came. So yeah.
So yeah, well, obviously things were improving more rapidly then, but you would certainly then become more of a prominence when I think it was in 2013. It was actually at York's Baz Round. You actually made the final, your first big final, I believe. That must have been. Was you shocked to be amongst that group, or was it just a weekend where everything fell more right for you? Yeah, what did you feel like when you actually found out that you'd made the final at a Baz Round?
It was a sense of relief, I think, the fact that finally I've done it. I've actually made a Baz final after trying for so many years. I think it helped that I'd been to York quite a lot through that season, just to try and improve on the track and whatnot. And then I had quite a good heat results because I ended up being second qualifier into the final.
Okay.
So yeah, that helped and that boosted my confidence. I'm not quite sure where it all went wrong in the final, whether the nerves got the better of me, because I actually ended up finishing 7th. But the fact I was there and I was up there with the best of them at the time and I'd got to the final it was a sense of relief, definitely.
Yeah.
I find in the final I'd actually got somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And going home from that, when you actually get the results, yes, maybe the final didn't go how you wanted it to, but going into the next event, then the confidence grows even further, and you hope to do even better. You always want to outdo your last result if it wasn't a win, and if you do have a win, you want to obviously keep doing that. But yeah, it would go on to the next year. A bit of a mixed year in different ways, which we won't go into everything, but 2014 was a year where on the track at least, you definitely enjoyed it, because you was a more consistent front runner at that time. And we start actually with the Scunthorpe Baz, which again is another track which you got to race on quite a bit in your junior days to gain more experience there. But this weekend was different for you, because normally your chief mechanic and supporter, your dad, actually wasn't there that weekend. Not for any bad reason. It was more of I think a work related, or somewhere along that line. So you actually ended up going to the event without your dad there. Again, as a junior, that must be quite nervous, because you've then got to wonder what you're doing all weekend, and you're probably thinking, have you got everything right before you go out in the car? Where's your last piece of advice from your dad? But it didn't go too badly. You ended up actually doing pretty well. Just explain how that weekend went for you, from your point of view.
Yeah, so obviously going to the meeting, I knew that Dad had to leave on the Saturday morning, like say work-related things, and I did have confidence still, but like you say, it's that little last bit of advice that he'd always give me, and even now he still gives me, this, that, and the other, when I'm going up to the start line. So I knew that not being there was going to be hard, really. But I had my mum, and Ted was looking after the car for me. So no, I did have a good team around me. So yeah, I went out in the first heat and had a win. So I rang him, and I could tell he was chuffed, but I knew deep down he was gutted he was never there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he'd never missed a race in my life, barring them two. And then later on in the day, I ended up going in the second heat, having another heat win. Rang him again. This time, actually, he asked me if I was telling him the truth. And I was like, no, I am. I just had a win. And he was like, and like I say again, it was just to pieces. But I think for him, he just wished he was there, especially when it was the first fast round that year, and he wasn't there. But he came back on the Sunday, and we still had some good results. Yeah. Second in the third heat, and then second in the final. So we topped it off all right. Yeah.
So that was the start of a good on track year for you. Did you have to show him the results from day one just to prove it that you wasn't lying?
I think I did maybe take him down to the board where all the results are. I was like, look, Dad, I have had 2 wins.
You would actually score more than 2 wins at the next Baz round at Cumdee, where a bizarre bet took place between you and your dad. Obviously, he was gutted to miss the Saturday of the first round, but he obviously knew deep down that good things were going to happen, because he made this really strange bet with you. Would you like to explain what this bet was and what the outcome was?
Yeah, so on the way to any race meeting, there'd always be a debate between me, mum and dad about what we have on the radio. I'd always want Capital, they'd maybe want Smooth or Radio 2 or something along those lines. And we'd have to obviously compromise every now and again. Anyway, so we drive into Cumdee, and I'm like, can I put Capital on? He's like, yeah, if you want. He said, right, I'll make you a deal. If you have 4 out of 4 wins this weekend, you can have Capital on all the way home. Now, in none of our wildest dreams did I ever imagine that come that Sunday, Capital would be playing all the way home.
So you actually ended up going out and having an unbeaten weekend, which I'm not sure if the first thing you thought of when you crossed the line was, yes, I'm getting to listen to Capital. I'm
No,
sure.
it wasn't.
How did it feel? Obviously, you'd gone through the heats unbeaten, but how did it feel to actually win the final? That must have been quite special.
Yeah, of course it was. Like, I just remember that final just felt like it just went on forever. I mean, initially I was lying second, I think, for 3 laps behind Josh Howard. And I was just like, oh my God, I just need him to make a mistake or something, just come on. And my problem is I am probably the worst person to put pressure on myself. And I wanted that win more than anything. And yeah, I don't know what had happened, but one lap he just went wide and the gap was there. And I remember as the laps were counting down, I was just talking to myself like, come on, you've only got one more lap, just keep doing what you're doing. They haven't passed you before, they won't do it again. And then seeing that checkered flag was just such a relief. And I honestly now can't describe the feeling of when I crossed that line. It was just an amazing feeling.
Good. Well, no, it's obviously you'd worked your way to that point, going from somebody who wasn't the most confident of people at the time when you first started. I mean, you was admittedly saying you was running around at the back of the group, but then you're going in a few years to winning actual BAS finals. So you must be proud of the progress you'd made in yourself, because obviously you've got to then, by the end of your junior career, you've got to get ready for when you make the next step to race in the adults. But unfortunately, your junior career didn't end in the best way because the car had been sold. But what actually happened to it right in front of the new owner of the car?
I went and rolled it. yeah, I did have it on its roof. Yeah. Obviously, you know, I was gutted the fact that I'd rolled it, but more so gutted the fact that I knew that was kind of the end of an era with that car.
Yeah.
I'd have it back tomorrow if I could, without a shadow of a doubt. But no, obviously, like I say, so I rolled it in front of Molly. I was fine until Molly came to me and she was upset. Whether it was because I'd rolled her a new car or whether she was upset for me, I don't know. But then I was just like, turned into a bit of an emotional wreck, had a little bit of a cry. I was like, right, Dad, we need to get the car sorted so that she can then come and pick her new car up.
Yeah.
Even newer than what it would have been if she'd have taken it away that day.
So obviously that was a low point of your junior career and not the way you wanted to end it. But I'm pretty sure it maybe was the Cumdee BAS Ramble. But what was the best memory from your junior career? And at that time, what did you want to do when you graduated to race in the adult classes? Was there a class which you wanted to race more than others? But yeah, what was your best memory from juniors, and what did you want to do in that near coming future?
Like you say, for me, I think my best memory has to be that the Cumdee 4 out of 4. I don't actually believe that year anyone else had done that. So obviously, being the only one I believe to have done that, then that year was, it was such an incredible feeling. And even now, sometimes I pinch myself and think, did it even happen? But of course it did. And going forward, I suppose really, you know, I would have liked to go in my dad's A. I never imagined that it'd become my car or he'd say, have it. So, but no, Class 8 was definitely somewhere I'd like to have progressed into. But like I say, I didn't quite know how that was going to come about. Yeah.
Well, Class 8 would be where you would go. It probably didn't happen when you was expecting it. Like you say, you was maybe thinking, well, Mum's retiring now, I'm going to jump in the car instead and share with Dad. But instead you would end up with your own Class 8. And this came at a time when you wasn't expecting to happen. Because you was actually watching the car race when you was told it was. Just explain how that little story went about with you getting your own car.
So at the end of 2014 season, me, Mum and Dad had gone to Scunthorpe's.
The Speedway.
The Speedway, that's it, yeah.
The Speedway track.
And little to my knowledge did I know that Dad initially intended to buy Jeff Beresford's car. So obviously Matt and Jeff were there. Dad had gone off for a wander, so I'd left him to it. Gone to have a word with Jeff about buying his car. Jeff had sold it. So then he says, I'll tell you what, why don't you have Matt's? And Dad had only just been talking to Matt earlier that night, and Matt was saying about how was really getting to grips with the car and really looking forward to the next season. And then obviously Jeff had just gone, no, Percy, you have it. So then, so then as Dad come back over to me, we're watching the racing, Matt pulls onto the track and he goes, see that car there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's yours now. I was like, what? Complete surprise, no idea, but really grateful that, he put the opportunity to me.
Yeah, so you would end up joining the class which you wanted to join, but didn't know it was going to happen. What did you think then when you moved into Class 8? What did you think to the car? Obviously, power difference is the initial thing, but what did you think to the actual Class 8? And what did you think to actually being on the track with other Class 8s at that first couple of meetings that you did?
So initially, I actually jumped in Mum and Dad's car like 2-3 weeks after I rolled.
Right.
I literally handed in my junior licence, applied for my ladies, and then came back. And then at the end of 2014 season, I did have 2 or 3 meetings in Mum and Dad's 8.
Okay.
So obviously, I got kind of used to being in the 8 and whatnot. But yeah, it was obviously the fast pace is hugely different. Car wise, I suppose it's more obviously the fact it drives with the rear and whatnot. But yeah, no, it was a good change. It was a new challenge for me.
Yeah, it's certainly something you're enjoying because you've still got the car now. You're still racing it, and you're now racing it fairly competitively as well at all levels. But you would end up changing clubs as well. You would end up joining Nottingham, which is where up till at least last year you were still a Nottingham racer. Obviously your mum and dad would also join, and you would hand the car back to them while you would get your own. But have you had many races against your mum on track? Has there been any close wheel-to-wheel moments, or do you keep it friendly between yourselves?
We do try and keep it friendly. I have managed to race Mum quite a lot, more so at the UK rounds than at a club meeting. But no, I think for me in the back of my mind was just stay away from your mum. I don't want to have to end up bringing 2 cars back into the pits for poor old Dad to have to fix and think, why can't my wife and my daughter just stay away from each other?
Well, it was your dad's fault. He could have got you in a different car, but he ended up with the Class 8. You've obviously got settled to that car pretty quickly. Because you were at the first ever UK round. We were there actually, fantastic weekend at Breedon Hill, the very first UK Championship round. You ended up actually top qualifier for the final. What did you, obviously with this being a new championship, what did you think to the competition in Class 8 going into that? And it probably was, you probably was a little bit surprised to find yourself as top qualifier that weekend. But yeah, overall, what did you think to racing Class 8 at that level?
I mean, competition in Ladies 8 is always tough, and I think that's one thing that draws me to it, just knowing that you've got to be on your game every weekend in order to be competitive. I think keeping me on my toes, that is what I like. But no, I was very surprised when I found out I was top qualifier. I never set out for anything that weekend. It was literally a case of it's your first UK, get used to the car, come back with no damage, all wheels intact. But to be top qualifier, I was very, very surprised, and I wasn't even at the point where I was keeping an eye on points and who was where. It was literally just I found out, and I was surprised. But like I say, competition and the ladies that race in the UK are brilliant, and it is difficult.
Yeah, well, I think you've raced in the UK Championship pretty much every year since it started. You're obviously a keen supporter of the UK Championship. You've finished 3rd twice in the Championship. Obviously, you want to improve on that. But what is it? What is it? Obviously, you enjoy that Championship, and your family does, and obviously people you actually go there with. But what is it about the UK Championship that you specifically like? Is it how the races are run? Obviously, with the open first heats, and then you're sort of structured into your races after that. What is it about the UK Championship that you enjoy personally?
Exactly that. I think it's just the fact that your first heat, it's just you with whoever you're with. And then I think it's just knowing that if, God forbid, you do have a bad race, that actually your weekend isn't kind of over just there and then. You have got the chance to pull it back. I find the weekends quite relaxed as well. And I think the fact that another thing is that come the Saturday afternoon, you aren't probably thinking, oh God, am I going to get my race in? Because you probably are, because of obviously it's capped at how many people come. And
Yeah.
I think it's just the fact that I can relax more knowing that actually come Saturday night, I've probably done both heats and I've had some good races.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you would end up having plenty of races over the times, because another car would join the team. How did the Class 7 come about? And when you got in that, how did that compare to obviously the Class 8 that you'd been racing for a few years? So yeah, what was your views on when this Class 7 appeared?
So initially, Dad came to me at Ladies and Juniors 2018 it was, and said, I'm thinking about getting another car. I was like, okay. I was like, who for? Me? You? He's like, for you. Oh God, apply the pressure a bit more, Dad, why don't you? And so initially we looked at a Class 9. However,
Yes.
it fell through, so that was that. And then this Class 7 appeared on Facebook for sale. And I showed Dad. Dad said it was the right price. I looked at some videos on YouTube of it racing, and that was it. The next thing I know, I'm on my way going to buy a Class 7. So it happened fairly quickly, but I think the theory behind it for my dad was more the fact that he's kind of always had 2 cars to take racing. And obviously when I joined the ladies, he kind of decided, right, that was it for him. He was going to retire. And then Mum was kind of slowly retired as well. So we only had the 1 car. So no, I think the fact he's always had 2, he just wanted 2 again. And I think for the pair of us, it was the fact that I'd have another challenge as well, try and keep me busy and keep me occupied.
So do you obviously enjoy the Class 7? You've been racing it now since when you got it, obviously you've been quite keen to race both cars as much as you can to keep yourself sharp, keep yourself concentrated for when you get to the next meeting and for whatever challenge come up. And 2019, the last full season that we got to have, obviously due to COVID and everything slamming down 2020 and what looks to be at least the early part of this year. But 29, there were some major achievements that you reached. One of them was at your home UK round. You would end up winning both Class 7 and 8 final. Is that now over the junior career? Is that now the high point for yourself? Obviously, winning 1 class final at a major round is great, but winning 2, that must have been even more special for you.
It was, yes. I mean, I love both 7 and 8. Obviously, the 7 final came first, and I think because for me, we'd had that many. I think we'd had quite a few reruns of the 7 final. There only ended up being 4 of us in the final, and it wasn't such a clean, not clean. It wasn't such a tight race, and I do kind of like when there's quite a few of us all together in the corner trying to fight for the same space. So.
Sometimes it's hard to put into words with what you were feeling at the time. But which final did you feel more proud of then, Class 7 or 8? Winning that 8, definitely. I suppose. Was that because you'd been racing that car longer, and you want finally that result?
I think for me it's a case of Ladies 8 is so competitive, and there's some great drivers in Ladies 7, absolutely. But I think the fact it's so competitive and we're all on such an even playing field that when I do well in the 8, it definitely is that confidence boost I need. So yeah, the 8 final, and like I say, because we're all so close and together, it does make a race. Yeah.
But probably more surprising with that this was the Class 7 which you achieved it in, but you actually reached another goal you'd set yourself, was to make a national final. And in 2019 you did make the national final, but it wasn't in the Class 8, it was actually in the 7. So was that a surprise at the time? Or obviously, because you're trying to focus on 2 classes, yes, they're not racing so close together. You've got a bit of time to obviously focus between the 2, but you was obviously delighted to make it in the 7, but did you think that you had more chance in the 7 or the 8 going into that? What did you think?
Initially, to be honest, it was the 8 final I went for. It's probably the 8 final I always go for. However, having said that, to make the 7 final on what I would say a budget 7 compared to a lot of them 7s out there was such a great feeling. Knowing that it wasn't no fancy singing or dancing car, it's just a car, you know, a home built 7. And yeah, it was such a great feeling to be there. Obviously, it didn't quite end well. I actually finished where you predicted me to finish, 7th. So you've got that right. So maybe next year go on up a bit. But so to make the final was brilliant. I was really pleased to be there. Like I say, it is a budget car compared to many out there. But no, it wasn't quite the final I wanted to be in. But I suppose I've just got to keep driving, and one day I will get there.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm sure you obviously seem quite determined to do well in both cars. But how do you split the focus then between the 2 cars? I mean, as I say, you have got a bit of time to obviously, you go out in the 7 first and then you come back in, you reflect on how the race has gone, you have time to get the car ready for the next one before they. But how do you actually get yourself focused, ready to drive each car? Do they feel any different to race, or do they seem quite similar, which obviously helps from a driving standpoint?
I suppose once I'm in the car, I kind of switch off from everything else. If you ever see me in the holding lanes, I am literally in the zone, nothing around me, like I kind of focus on all. And, you know, obviously, if anyone's seen me jump from one car to the other, you'll probably think my head's in the clouds, but it isn't. I am focused, and I suppose for me, like, it's just remembering, telling myself, right, you're in the 7 now, Abby, you know what you're doing. You're in the 8 now, Abby, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And initially, well, to be fair, both at the moment, both gear sticks are on the opposite side to each other. So it's remembering which side to go for. However, I haven't actually made a mistake and gone for the wrong side. But when we first bought the 7, the gears are the opposite way around, and I said, right, I can cope with the gear sticks being on the wrong side, but for God's sake, make gears both the same way. But no, so I just literally just get in the car and I just try and zone out and just remember where I am, which car I'm in, and just focus. And I don't quite know, but somehow it does manage to work.
Yeah, it can obviously get a bit frantic at club meetings if you've got both cars there, but at least when it's the major events and you do need the ultimate concentration and focus on it, then at least you've got the time to get ready. Which do you enjoy more, the 7 or the 8? Which to actually in a race, which car do you prefer?
I hate this question. It's got to be the 8. It has to be the 8. And like I say, I think it just goes back to the fact that, no disrespect to any ladies 7 drivers out there, because they're tough and they are hard drivers, but it's just, I don't know what it is about the 8, but there's just such a sense of achievement whenever I've done well. So I guess then I've got to go with the 8.
But you love both cars the same. Right, well, obviously we don't know what's going to be happening in the near future or the long-term future. We don't know when we can go racing again. Obviously, we all want it to happen sooner rather than later. I take it for the time being, you're going to be sticking with both cars, 7 and 8. But is there anything else you would like to do in the sport? Is there any other classes that you'd like to race in? Is there anything which you think, I'd like to have a go in that next if the chance comes?
I'd like the opportunity to have a go in a 5.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably where everybody with a 5 shoots me now, but I would imagine it might be similar to a 7. I've no idea. I've never been in one. So I suppose if I was to be dived right in the deep end with something that I'm not used to, then maybe a 3. I'd maybe quite fancy to go 3 as well. Yeah. Just something completely different from what I'm used to.
Yeah. So okay. So well, we could see a 3 or a 5 in the future, but I'm sure you're very happy with Class 7 and 8 at the moment. They are 2 of the crowd favourite classes to watch as well, so it must be pleasing to be able to be involved with that. But yeah, we've got one little final fact that you told me about. I came up with a small nickname for it by the name of Odd Socked Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's this little story which we can now share?
So, like I said, way back when I had my first ever race win, I think maybe in 2012 it might have been, I'd had a win, I'd gone home, thought no more about it, took my race boots off, and I was wearing odd socks. And since that day, I have never put a pair of matching socks on. Whether it's just a good look thing or what it is, I don't know. But no, I just don't wear pairs of socks anymore. I never have done. And I think I'd be frightened to put a normal pair of socks on now.
So do you now buy a pair and then throw one away?
No, I just put them all in the drawer, and as long as I go to the drawer and I don't pick out a pair, I'm all right. Even when I pack the racing, I put different ones in to make sure there isn't a pair in there.
Are you one-socked all the time then?
Yes, literally all the time. No, not just at racing, literally all the time, even now.
Well, no, it's been great to be able to talk to you about some of this. We've learned some new things. We've learned bits about your autographs life. Obviously, you are keen, buzzing, excited, desperate to get back out there on a racetrack. And yeah, so just very quickly, final point then. What's your, just a quick fire question, what's your favourite race meeting that you actually race at? Which meeting do you enjoy most? Is it a nationals? Is it another major meeting, or is it just the UK Championship as a whole, which you look forward to?
I would say it's the UK Championship as a whole. Really, it's just the fact that you have to be consistent throughout the season in order to it to pay off in the end. And you know, at nationals, I do believe it's majority about luck on the day. You get the results and you get to the final, and if you don't, unfortunately, your weekend's kind of over really before it's began if you have one bad result. So no, it's definitely the UK Championship as a whole, keeping consistent and knowing that good things will come when you are consistent. Good.
So you're looking forward to it. Everybody's looking forward to being back out there. I've run out of questions to ask. But a final one. Seeing as how we are in this awful time still, contact with friends, family is difficult. Is there any messages you want to pass out there to anybody who may watch this? Any friends, family? You can name them if you wish. If it's a long list, then just you can. We've got a few more minutes if you want. But yeah, any message you want to pass on out there?
I guess I just want to say hi, Mum and Dad. Hope you're all okay. Just want to say a massive thank you to Dad. I know that he is working hard in the garage over the weekends. He's continued to work throughout this whole pandemic, bless him, being a key worker. So big thumbs up to you. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll get there one day, Dad. We'll get to the national final in that 8.
Anybody else out there? Any friends or anybody at all, if you want?
It sounds like I don't have many friends. We'll just stick to Mum and Dad, and then that's fair, then, isn't it? I don't miss somebody out.
Yeah, well, anybody who may watch this, then Abi sends all her best wishes, and she look forward to catching up with everybody very soon.
I've got one thing to say, actually.
What's that?
I've got one for Vicky Lamb.
Okay.
Now, obviously, me and Vicky do get on really well. Obviously, I love racing with her in the 8. But Jesus, Vicky, you didn't have to send Corona just to keep that title. So I'm sure she'll see the funny side of this. But no, love you lots, and you know I'm only messing with you. But yes, you didn't have to send Corona just to keep that flipping title. But I am looking forward to getting back out there with all the ladies in the UK and finally see some track.
Yes, yeah, it would be nice, but no, it's been fantastic to talk to you. It's been fantastic to learn stuff about you, stuff which I certainly didn't know. I'm sure stuff which others didn't either. But no, overall, you approached me to do this, so I'm very grateful for it. As I say, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't say thank you anymore for that.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
No, it's quite all right. It's not the easiest of things to do. Most people are much more comfortable to talk on camera after a few drinks, but apparently you don't do that anymore either, apart from orange juice. I've been on water tonight and I've run out, but yeah, no, it's been great to talk to you. That is it. That was guest number 10 tonight. We have got more lined up to come very, very soon, which I'm also looking forward to. But Abi Shields, thank you very much for joining me on Grasschat. I am Russ. I hope you're all doing okay and you look after yourselves. And that's it for another Grasschat. We will see you soon.